When you are building a high performance culture, you know that this is a journey. It just doesn't happen overnight. And along that journey, you're going to find that there are going to be team members that are going to fumble the ball along the way and not hit those milestones that you've put in place for them. So whether that's lack of planning on their part or lack of planning on your part, that remains to be seen. But in the 25 years that we have worked with companies from startup all the way to Fortune 500 and helping them build a high performance culture, we have found there's about 10 common pitfalls that typically teams and their leaders make that prevent them from reaching those milestones of peak performance. And we're going to talk about that today. Hello, my name is Darlene Gagnon, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kinetic Promotional Products. And my partner in business and in life, Denny, and I made a commitment this year that we wanted to take our collective 25 years of entrepreneurial experience, business expertise, and what we've learned from our own clients and put together a series of educational sessions to help you fast track through the common mistakes that happen when you're trying to build this ultimate peak performance operating machine that's making things happen for your business. So today we're going to talk about those 10 pitfalls that teams and leaders make, what you can do to avoid those pitfalls when teams are trying to hit their goals and the leaders are trying to push their teams to reach those milestones, and then what happens if you do fall in that doggone pit. How do you get yourself out and keep the culture of the team steady and flowing and motivated to go on to the next milestone and accomplish the next goal even when failure has already happened? Welcome to our video series. I hope that you will subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that little bell next to the subscription button so that you can get notified every time we upload content. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We're happy to connect with you. But let's get started on learning what we can do to make sure that we're protecting your culture of peak performance. Are you ready to get going? I am. Let's go. Okay, guys, so we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the 10 pitfalls to why teams fail and aren't able to keep up with the high peak performance culture that we know you desire. So we're going to go through those steps one by one, and we're going to use like a little scenario so that you can tie it back, okay? So let's make a general assumption that in your business that you want to grow sales, right? So the team goal is grow sales, right? And let's say that the growth number is like we need to grow by 6% and it needs to be gross revenue. Okay? So that's the team goal. And now let's talk about the pitfalls that the team can run into if they're not properly prepared and set up for success. Okay? Number one is teams are going to fail if they don't have already laid out right people in right seats. And what do I mean by that? If you know you have an underperformer that is barely hanging on to their employment in the company and you put them on this team project, the team is not going to be hyper successful, period. So I want to make some general assumptions that when we're talking about why teams fail and how to maintain a high performance culture, that you've already resolved this issue. I can tell you as an entrepreneur, my people problem was my number one learning lesson as an entrepreneur. Get the people portion correct, and a lot of other things are going to fall into line. And if you need help in that area, I've got some very great people, contacts, and resources I'm happy to refer to you. But teams typically fail when they've got somebody that maybe should be working in the company, but they're sitting in the wrong job, or there's somebody that should not be working with the company and they're put on a team to try to accomplish a goal. Okay? So that's number one. Number two is the word grace is eliminated from the vocabulary, right? So when teams are pulled together and they are to work cohesively together to keep a high performance culture alive and well, you have to understand that risk and failure and testing and trialing things until you get them right should follow the word grace. And guess what? As entrepreneurs in our business, or as leaders in our companies, or if we're leading teams, we make mistakes. So if we expect our team to give us grace and understand that we're growing as a leader, then we need to give them grace as well. And so every project, every company goal that we're working towards, everyone should feel safe in their environment to perform at their ultimate level and trust that if they don't have the skills needed, that we as leaders, we're going to give them those skills. And if they fumble, if they drop the ball while they're learning how to cultivate those skills, we're going to give them grace. Okay? So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that everyone understands what the pitfalls really are when it comes to failure So when you put a team together to accomplish a goal of growing sales, you want them to understand these are the pitfalls in working as a team that you want to be hyper aware of. When you give them the information of the pitfalls, they don't jump into the pit. They don't accidentally stumble and fall into the pit, right? You've told them, look out for these things so that you guys can work cohesively and we can get to the milestone and the goal that we've outlaid for the company so all of us can feel successful individually and as a team and as a company, okay? So informing them of what these pitfalls can look like so you don't create failure in teamwork is really, really important. So let's take the acronym of failure and let's break it down to finalize the last 7 steps, okay? The first one is F for finding the map. Many, many times when we give our team an overarching goal, they don't understand how it correlates to where the company's headed or correlates to what it means for them or what it means for their department. They're just given a task, grow sales. Okay, well, how much of those sales do we need to grow, right? So we know the number, 6%. Who is responsible for this number? So is everyone responsible? So what happens if you don't hit that number? Who's to blame or who is accountable for being talked to about not reaching those goals, right? You can't do that. You got to be very clear. Okay, so out of the 6%, I want 3% to come from marketing lead generation. I want 2% to come from sales and new business development, not counting the leads that you're getting from marketing. I want 1% to come from current customers and selling more to the same customers, right? Whatever that number is, right? Now they're very clear on what the goal and the vision is and who's responsible for what. And then obviously you got to break down, okay, how are we going to get an additional 1%? of selling new products and services. Obviously, we're going to have to do some sort of account planning and see how we can upsell certain customers. You just can't say 1%. Well, what accounts, right? What accounts can we cross-sell or upsell more services, right? Okay, so that's F for finding them out. A are roles of accountability. Okay, so kind of plays back to what we talked about here. If the goal is to grow 6% of gross revenue, who's responsible for that? What are their individual roles and what's their level of accountability? A lot of times it's we need to grow 6% and everybody's trying to do everything they can. And how do you hold the team or the individual accountable for the success of the company? Everybody is doing their own thing, hoping they make some sort of contribution, but they're not working as a cohesive machine. And remember, a high performance culture, you work cohesively together, okay? So we look at I, and that comes back to intentional planning. All right, so let's say we need to grow sales, top line 6%, and we've got the marketing team that's responsible for 3% of new lead generation. But the sales team also has to take current leads that they already have and focus on those. How do we make sure that the marketing team, when they're generating leads, the sales team is able to take those leads, cultivate them into new business while they're also having to work with new account management? This is where very intentional planning has to happen. This can't be a shotgun approach. You're setting them up for failure. You're saying generate a bunch of leads, but by the way, we don't know who's going to take care of them. The salespeople are saying, hey, I got enough just, handling the current pipeline that I have and trying to grow my current base. You got to have intentional planning, okay? All right, so L, lack of management support. Oh, and training. Okay, so the goal is grow 6%, right? We've got marketing that has to generate X number of leads. We've got sales that has to take care of, the current pipeline, and we've got current customers that we've got to develop new business with. How is management going to support and train them to manage all of these activities? I'm going to give you a scenario. We had a entertainment center, and we are working through the promotional product side. We're working through our agency that we have as well to generate new business for this entertainment center. We were working with the marketing team, intaking a ton of leads, about 600 leads a month, but the needle wasn't moving. Why wasn't the needle moving? Because the salespeople were dealing with current bookings that they currently had, and they were trying to work with current customers to upsell them. So all these leads were going into a black hole. And when the marketing people talked to the salespeople, there was no support. And what do you think that became? Well, hey guys, we have to grow our revenues, and believe me, it was a bigger number than this. Why aren't you taking care of my leads? And the salespeople are like, I have enough to do, and it created this. And there was nobody managerial that was training them or coaching them or working with them or collaborating with them to come up with solutions. So teams fail because they have lack of management support and training, right? It's easy to say, yep, we'll do whatever it takes to grow that 6% in revenue. But sometimes you need a little bit of training on how to pull it all together and make it a cohesive plan, okay? So, you, unable to deal with conflict. And this is huge when you're working with teams. Can you imagine the scenario that I just gave you where they're bringing in 600 leads a month and nobody is following up on those leads and they've got this huge number to handle? What if that marketing team stopped what they were doing and said, sales, how can we help you? We've inputted all these, we've brought in 600, 1,000 leads the last couple of months. How can we help you turn those leads into dollars? We can turn off the funnel, but how can we help you? So the ability for the team to actually know how to deal with conflict resolution, which is its own learning category itself, is something that's really important for teams to work cohesively together. And trust me, nobody is above crossing over from one department over to the other. Everything should always be a cohesive team approach when it comes to bringing revenue in or working on major problems in a business. All teams should and all departments should work together. Okay, R for resources. So, resources. Are they clear? Are they defined? Are you also educating your team? If they come to you and say, okay, in order for us to hit 6%, we want to do X, Y, and Z. Do you just say, no, we don't have the budget for that? Or do you sit down and collaborate with them and you say, you know what, we can't do that. We'll have to wait on this, but this is a go. I see what you're trying to do here. Let's work together to find some commonality. Are you giving them the resources, or are you giving them the training so they understand the why behind the no when you say, no, we can't do that? So resources are really important. Okay, last but not least is effort. And there's two types of efforts when teams are working together. There's team effort and there's individual effort. And are they clear on what those roles will be? You know, when a team comes together and they've got a goal that they need to accomplish, you're always going to have a few that have more dominating personalities. It doesn't mean that the people that are quiet in the room don't have a lot to contribute. It just means that the dominant personalities are talking louder and more, right? So when you pull a team together to accomplish a task, a project, or a major milestone, are you ensuring that everybody on that team is clear about their own individual contribution that needs to be made, what you're expecting out of them individually, and what are you expecting them out of them as a collective team? Very important, right? So we got 10 things that create pitfalls: wrong people in wrong seats, not creating a culture of grace where people are able to fail as long as they're doing their best due diligence that you know that you've trained them to do. They're not clear on these pitfalls, and you're not telling them, hey, look, if I don't give you a clear map, if I don't tell you who's responsible for what, if I don't help you with real good intentional planning as a leader, if I'm not supporting you or training you when you feel like you may lack the skills to deal with conflict resolution or how to navigate through resources or lack thereof resources, then I'm putting the effort on you to come to me as your leader and tell me I need to own up to these areas. And I'm willing as a leader to hear you, because we all believe in authentic leadership, right? We want to make sure that we're equally as available to our team for their own individual support as we expect them to support us in our own goals, whether we're a leader in a department or running the business as well, right? Okay, so these are the 10 pitfalls that prevent teams from being successful. And I hope that you see that it not only prevents teams from being successful, it prevents your company from operating in a very high peak performance mannerism. You give the company and the teams goals, but you gotta make sure that you're avoiding these pitfalls so they can reach those goals. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some time and we're gonna talk about the steps that you can take to overcome these pitfalls. It won't take too long because it's very simple, right? And how you can empower your team to maintain that high peak performance that I know that you want. We all want our department or our company being successful. I want you to think about something. You touch a lot of lives. Vendors that you buy from, you're putting food on their table. The clients that you're supporting, whether you're selling them services, you're either making their life better, their business better, whatever, you're helping their lives. Your employees, when your companies are successful, you are helping your employees grow personally and professionally, and you are helping them expand their revenue so they can contribute back to society. So everything that you do in terms of your culture touches a lot more of the community and the people around you than you can even ever imagine. It's not just what's happening in your business. So having a high performance culture is a benefit to everyone, okay? All right, so I'm gonna pause for a second, change out my paper, and we're gonna go through those actionable items that you can take to avoid these pitfalls and make sure that your team is operating at a high performance level. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay guys, so we've gone through the pitfalls, the 10 pitfalls of what causes a team to fail. So now let's talk about what causes a team to perform. So important. So these elements of performance really are the catalyst for making sure that people are cautiously aware of avoiding the pitfalls, right? When you've got authentic leadership saying, look, if I'm not helping you avoid these pitfalls, please come to me. Man, you are creating a culture for success. Now, if we add these elements in that I'm getting ready to go over with you, you're really building the machine for a high performance culture. So the first thing is when we're looking for people to really perform, we're going to take this acronym and we're going to outline these elements. And the first one is everyone needs to understand the purpose and vision of the company. And we all know the famous know your why, but it's very, very important that everyone in your company is able to recite that purpose and the vision, and more importantly, what is their individual contribution that they're making to that purpose and that vision. How empowering if you know that when I do this job, it affects this and this and this and this, and it affects that, and all of that contributes to the greater purpose and vision for our company. It's a great way to keep people motivated and very clear on who they are and their contribution to the company, and it builds great self-esteem. It's a wonderful activity if you really show them how their job really affects the whole of the company. So next is empowerment. When you are building teams and they've got a great sense of purpose and vision, they know what the goal is. Remember, the goal was getting that 6% of top line sales growth, right? And they understand we got a purpose and a vision. We got to hit this milestone, right? You got to make sure that you've empowered them with a high sense of accountability for not only themselves, but for others, and that you've also defined the boundaries by which they can work in as a team and as an individual within that team. What are they allowed to do and not do? Do they have budget controls? Do they not have budget controls? Do they have decision-making rights? Do they not? Can they just come up with ideas, but then somebody else has to, own those decisions? You gotta make sure that they're empowered so they can move quickly and fast, and they're very clear on what their boundaries are. Next is relationship and communication. I'm just going to abbreviate that. Okay, so they need to understand the relationship between themselves and their team members and how much risk can each of the team members take together or individually in order to achieve this goal. How much out of the box thinking can they bring to the table, and how much will the other team members support them in those efforts. It's very important. And that means increasing the level of communication, right? Team members need to be able to clearly communicate without judgment to their team members if an idea is not something that's really going to work. How can they cultivate a line of communication where there's an open dialogue and say, you know, I see where you're going. I think it's a kind of a good idea, but what if we did this? Or what if we thought of that? So teaching them to have a solid relationship with their teammates that brings a high level of communication is so important in bringing great performance out of a team. We got great performance out of a team. We've got a great culture of high performance activity. Okay, so let's talk about F for flexibility. When teams are brought together, they should clearly understand now is the time to be flexible. When you come together as a team, you need to be open to the ideas of your teammates. You need to be open to the different types of personalities and the different ways that they communicate. But you also need to be very open to new ideas, new ways of doing business so that we can hit that 6% goal. Let's say that maybe the market's in a downturn and we're asking them to hit that 6%, and that's a real stretch at this time of day. The old ways of doing marketing or doing sales may not be applicable right now. Why? Because we got a down economy. We may need to think outside the box. That means that operations may need to be a little flexible in some of the ideas that sales and marketing are bringing to the table in order to get to that number. Maybe they want to expand a product line, or they want to open up a new revenue stream, right? A new service. And operations has to be willing to work with them, collaborate with them, and say, okay, well, we could do that, probably can't do this, but this could be kind of, a happy medium. Flexibility is super important when you are teaching teams to become high performance driven, culture building, business building entities, right? Okay, optimal standards. I hope that every brand that exists has standards of operation, right? How are we going to operate and manage our business? And what are the clear boundaries within that? So obviously, to get to 6%, you may have boundaries of standards like we're not giving discounts, we're not giving rebates, things of that nature. You need to go in and ensure that the quality and the integrity of the product maintains its highest standards of deliverables to the client. So, and we got to still hit that 6%. You're not going to undercut us. We're not going to be the cheapest in the market, et cetera, et cetera. So ensuring optimal standards are very, very clear for your team in order for them to have that high level of performance, and then for you, the outcome of that performance. Recognition. R for recognition. Shouldn't be at the bottom of the list, but for acronym's sake, it is. But I will tell you that a culture of recognition drives a culture of high peak performance. It's funny. A lot of people say, oh, you sell tchotchkes. And actually, we don't. We don't sell tchotchkes. We're not the lowest price point in the market when it comes to promotional products. What we do is we help people build a culture of recognition so that they can move into a high peak performance. And usually promotional products play two roles, either that culture of recognition or driving business, right? They fall in those two categories. So we're very strategic about how we work promotional products, and that's why we've got all of this great head knowledge, because we typically work on these types of initiatives and apply promotional products to help keep that recognition going and also that morale as well. And so whether or not you're buying promotional products, that's irrelevant. You've got to keep the morale high, whether there is success or failure. You've got to recognize your team and thank them for choosing your company. They chose to work at your company. They chose you out of many of your competitors. And they're there, and they want to be a part of your team, and they want to see you hit those milestones or that 6%. So thank them. Thank them for being on the team. Thank them for their ideas, good, bad, or indifferent. They're trying. And then, of course, thank them whether they failed or whether they succeeded. Recognize them for the best work done. And listen, let's say they fail. Let's say they didn't do their best work. You know what you got to do? You got to recognize them and say, look, I want you here because I want to see you cultivate and grow, and here are the things you need to work on. And when you work on these things within my business, I'm going to tell you, it's going to even help you in your personal life to be better holistically. You're giving them an opportunity to holistically grow even through their own challenges. Very, very important. And so here we've got kind of the acronym of PERFORM laid out here. And these tips and tools, while messy, I know with my horrible handwriting and on Post-it notes, will all be put together in a quick little tip sheet that will help you have a checklist for leadership or for yourself that says, these are the pitfalls we need to make sure that we're avoiding before we implement this team project or this team milestone or this company goal. And here are the standards by which all of our teams are going to work. Okay? So I really appreciate you being a part of this first video in a series of videos that we're going to do on building a high performance culture. Some will be longer, some will be shorter than the one that we did today. Next week on Thursday, we are going to walk you through the ultimate team building activity. I'm going to tell you that when I implemented this with my team, it was very life-changing for me. And I have shared this team building activity with clients, and I've gotten calls from owners that have said, wow, really opened up my eyes and put a whole new perspective on what we're trying to accomplish here. And for the individual departments of these different companies, they actually found that doing this team building activity brought more cohesiveness. So it's a very eye-opening experience, and I look forward to sharing that with you next Thursday. I hope that some of this content, I hope all of it, but some of this content worked for you, and that you were able to garner some nuggets to take back and implement in your day-to-day leadership over your team or any next team projects that you guys are going to be initiating as well. If this resonated with you, or if you want more information on certain areas that I covered, put a comment. We'll be happy to respond to that comment and get you the information needed, or we'll cover some of those topics in a future video. Please like and share, and we look forward to connecting with you on our social media platforms. You know, Denny and I are very passionate about building people because we know it ultimately builds businesses, and those are the things that we like to do, our own entrepreneurial selves. So look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Make it a great day and take care of yourself.